just last week, Multiversus said they're shutting down. Some folks ended up paying $100 for tokens that they'll never be able to redeem. And this seems to be a running theme with Warner Brothers games, because Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League has been a pretty massive disaster. They also had a $100 package in that game that has ended up selling for $5. That's crazy. But I have to ask, what do we blame for all this? Is it all Warner Brothers management? Are live service games only viable if they're MMOs or Fortnite? Well, let's break down Multiversus first. This was a very obvious Smash Bros. Clone, but it did have some cool ideas. Ultra Instinct Shaggy, that's hysterical. 2v2 fights, that's a really fun focus that's different than Smash Bros. It had rollback netcode, and it was free to play, but it didn't have gambling loot boxes that preyed on little kids and addictions. The worst thing you could really say about Multiversus was that $100 bundle I mentioned earlier, and that was part of a Founders Edition 3 years ago, so at least those buyers got some sort of value, right? Well, Multiversus got yanked offline for almost a full year between 2023 and 24, and that's partly because the player base dropped over time from the 143K at launch to under 1,000 players. I guess higher-ups thought that a soft reboot of the game would be helpful as they worked on a lot of the polish, but I don't know. This is Warner Brothers. They're not some indie game company. They have literal billions of dollars, and they did make some huge plays for Multiversus. Back in 2022, it was a part of EVO and had the biggest prize pool in history with $100,000 offered across the top 64. I should note that Multiversus was an open beta at the time, and that accidentally pausing the game during fights was a huge controversy, but still, imagine if they pushed that momentum forward. They had to have some sort of strategy for this game, right? I mean, some Warner Bros. Accountant had to look at all this and crunch the financial numbers, right? It's just weird that Suicide Squad is in a similar spot. Well, actually, that game does cost money. It's $70 right now, but just a month ago, it was on sale for $3. That's 95% off. Maybe the problem is really live service itself as a concept. These are games that need programmers to constantly update the game, which means extra cost to the company. I mean, sure, you can get a huge following at first, but eventually folks will naturally move on. That's just attention spans and life cycles. So this is just my opinion here, but I don't think developers in a live service game get to go hard because they are purposely not giving content so that they can release it later on. I don't know that you can ever really get something polished out of live service unless you're Fortnite, but I'm too old to understand that, so I'm not gonna try. I just think of the Batman Arkham Asylum games. These are massive, massive gems that are critically loved, and it's clear that Warner Brothers can publish really great games, but I'm thinking maybe it's less of a WB as a company thing and more of a WB as a greed thing. I think some executives saw Fortnite making billions a year and think all they gotta do to get a piece of that is to bait customers with $100 special editions and just release content at the slowest trickle possible. No wonder those games are dying. And no, I'm not just making up Warner Brothers' obsession with Fortnite. Take a look at this post from a very reputable leaker named Sheena. Warner Brothers' new tactic is to double down on collabs with other games again, including Fortnite. And I don't know, maybe Warner Brothers, being a movie company, thought that Multiversus would have some sort of movie potential or streaming potential, but your guess is as good as mine when it comes to figuring out what the plan for Multiversus was. Of course, it's also possible that it's not a Warner Brothers thing or a live service games thing, but rather the developers themselves. Player First Games might be kind of an ironic name for the studio. The director, Tony, had a lot to say about the game closing, and I did think overall it was a pretty fair and honest and perhaps even mournful kind of post, but the reactions that people posted online were definitely not favorable to him, and people were citing all sorts of things like, why why were you teasing us with really exciting characters that never happened? Or why are you busy releasing characters like Banana Guard when you could be working on characters like Gandalf? So yeah, I don't know. It's a really sticky situation, all things considered. I've been really high and mighty this entire video, but I just want to say that I have also been scammed by video game concepts. Here's my Kickstarter history. We got gems in here like Shenmue 3, and look at Mighty number 9. I spent $125 on that game, and that was the dollar bill back in 2013, so I may as well have spent $300. I talked about Mighty number 9's final update in 2025, so check out that video if you're curious. I'm also still rebuilding from the California fires that destroyed my house and all my property and collections, so check out my other channel if you're curious to see how my personal life is going. As always, stay safe, scouts, and I'll see you next time.